On today's episode, we're installing our new framing kit. Check it out. Hey everybody, Matt here for AVC and welcome back to the shop. Today we're going to be installing our AVC Skeleton, and that is our new van framing system. Now this is going to give you a more consistent install to your wall kit, where we're going to work around our wiring harness so we can leave the factory wiring harness exactly where it is. We're also going to be removing some of the curvature of the van here with this framing kit. So it's going to be it's going to allow you to make your DIY cabinets much easier. There's no curve front to back, and then there's only one curve from the top to bottom, and it's right here, and it's a 4 degree. So we have a perfectly perpendicular wall at the bottom, then a 4 degree bend, and then it's totally flat until we get up here to the ceiling. So your overhead cabinets are going to be easier to make. Your kitchenette cabinets, all your lower cabinets are going to be also much easier to make. Now the last thing I want to point out is that this is a glue-in design, which means you don't need any extra screws to put this into the van. We wanted to work around all the factory holes the best we could, so we use these little plastic Christmas tree plugs to line up the entire kit, so we have a consistent fitment, and that way everybody's kit is going to go in the exact same. But you can add screws, and you'll notice in here we do have some screws, and you'll see that during our install process. In case you're not afraid of putting some screws in, there is an added bonus of that. But if you want to take a little more time, put no extra holes in the van, you can 100% do that with this kit, which is pretty cool. So this internal framing kit, unlike some of the others that you might see on the market, is actually available in individual sections. So we're not forcing you to buy the entire thing if you don't want to. If you want to buy just the ceiling mounting kit, we can sell you just the ceiling. If you want to buy just the driver's side kit, we can sell you that. We wanted to break it out because everybody has a different idea of how they want to build the van. And so if you want individual pieces and parts, just shoot us an email. We're happy to hook you up with whatever you need. There's also a few additional quality of life things that we baked into this kit. So we have things like wiring pass-throughs up here for our over-the-top wiring. We also have these little slotted holes that are in here so we can throw zip ties in there and secure that wiring where it goes over the top of the van. We also have little things like this over here where we can put an outlet, because we like to put a little 110 outlet over the top of our kitchenettes in this location. So we just went and added a pre-opened hole here so we can put our junction box inside that spot. So this skeleton kit and the new wall kit 2.0 that goes with it are both designed around these Go Code interior trim plastics. So we're friends with Go Code. We think it's a really great product. It makes the DIY install super easy. You can get these plastics in plain ABS or pre-upholstered. So we have an upholstered version here that's in our van. And that the pieces that are required are the 2 blob covers up front, as well as some D pillars in the back. So I think that's probably a good place to start. Let's go ahead and get these pillar plastics installed and get this van underway. Our first step is going to be prepping our van interior. So the steps that we're going to be doing right now are going to be wiping all of our surfaces with some isopropyl alcohol. We're going to be moving our wiring harness into place and just getting everything zip tied up. It's temporarily held up right now, but we'll get into those details. We're going to be removing some of the factory LEDs and any extra things from Ford that we don't need. And then we're going to be adding some riv nuts in preparation for our installation. So let's go ahead and get to work. So I have some isopropyl alcohol just on some paper towels here, and I'm going to go ahead and wipe down all of our surfaces in the van. We're going to go a little bit overboard, but we just want all of this first surface here, everything here wiped down, these inside edges wiped down, and some of our ceiling areas as well. Everything is now wiped down with isopropyl, so let's go ahead and get this wiring harness zip tied into place. So in preparation for this video, we got this wiring harness kind of temporarily set up here, so you're going to see a lot of zip ties, but we just flipped these things 180 so they're not actually engaged. Now we're going to get this wiring harness put exactly where we want it. So where we want this wiring harness is to land right below these 2 square holes. It's going to land right here. So let's go ahead and get a detail shot of that. So this is what I'm talking about. We want to get this wiring harness basically the top of it aligned with the bottom of this square hole. So this one here that's not secured yet, we can go ahead, pull this out, put our zip tie into place. We just want it landing right there, and that's going to be where we want these things to end up. To get our zip ties through these holes, what I'm going to do is just give this a little extra bend here, and then I can feed it from here. It's going to pop right through there, and then I can pull it up. That way I can get everything zip tied up, and I don't have to necessarily get my fingers behind here if they're in a space that I can't reach behind. So this wiring harness is now exactly where we want it, and it's in preparation for our skeleton kit to go over the top. Let's go ahead and strip out some of these extra things here in the van that we don't need, and we're going to be moving on. So this gray connector right here is going to our overcab lights, and we're not going to need these lights in our camper build. So we can go ahead and press this button right here and disconnect this. We're gonna leave this piece in place, but we can strip this piece of harness out. We're gonna pop these two overhead lights out as well. So I have my panel popper tool here. Just push it behind this, kind of twist this. So we just want to be careful not to damage this wiring harness. The one that goes to the blue plug here, that's gonna be our satellite radio harness, and we don't want to remove that because we still want our satellite radio to function. So I'm just being careful not to pry against that wiring harness. Okay. Getting these lights out can be kind of tricky, but there's just a little clip on both sides. So if you push your popper tool in one side and pry down, it'll loosen one side. Then when you get to that second side, it'll pull the whole thing out. Oh, sometimes it pushes it back in. There she goes. Okay. Then we can remove these two wires from the light. We can toss that in the trash. Then we pull the boot out, and our wires are going to come with it. Down, down. So this last sensor here in the roof is actually a detector for our keyless entry. This is a 23 van, so we have that keyless entry option, which is really cool. But we want to make sure this stays in place so we have that functionality. We also want to keep it located here, so it's kind of central to the van. As we walk up to the back door, it can still detect it, things like that. We do want to reroute this wiring piece, so I'm going to let Ian take it away from here and reroute that sucker. Our last piece of install is going to be putting in our rib nuts. So we need 8mm rib nuts here in the ceiling, and that's to support our unistrut, and that holds up all of our cabinets, things like that. And then for the Go-Code plastics, we're going to need 1/4 rib nuts that go all along the inside of the D-pillar here. All of this stuff is included in our kit. The only thing you need is a rib nut setting tool. We actually put these in last year because we took this to a trade show. So all these are installed, but we'll show you the locations, and you can just install the rib nuts as you please. So the location of this 8mm rib nut is in a factory hole, and it's the first circular hole after the double layer here stops. So we just go out, and it goes right here. You will have to use a step bit to open this up, so make sure you step bit it, you prime it, and then when we install our rib nuts, we like to put some Gorilla Glue in there. The Gorilla Glue is gonna keep them from spinning out, so it's just an extra little bit of insurance when we put those in. So we're gonna put these 8mm rib nuts in every one of our roof ribs on both sides, whether we're putting unistrut there or not. We want them in every one. Then over here on the D-pillar, just inside, there's a whole row of these small holes all the way down the pillar. And we're gonna make sure we put a 1/4 rib nut in all of these all the way down. We skip this one because it interferes with our kit. And then all the way down here to the floor. You're also gonna want them up above right here in the very top, and it's next to this large circular indent. So that's an easy way to locate that one. We're gonna use these to hold up one of the plastic sections here. And we're gonna end up using the threaded insert right here. We don't have to do anything with our wiring harness where it dives inside the wall here to go down to our tail lights, nor do we have to do anything with the harness where it comes up over the top of this D-pillar. This is one of the huge advantages of that Go-Code plastics kit, is it actually comes out over the top of this harness, so we don't have to mess with it at all. Another cool thing is we don't have to take these plastic covers or the panel latches off at all. The strike plates here for the doors are kind of a pain to get this plastic to go over upholstery, and so this pre-upholstered kit is a really easy install. With our rib nuts in place, that is the last of our van prep, and we're ready to install these Go-Code plastics. Before we get to installing these Go-Code plastics, I wanted to give a quick shout out to our sponsor, Rep & Roam.
Rep & Roam makes t-shirts and stickers for the van lifer. With 3 van types and multiple countries, states, and non-regionals, there is something for every traveler. I like this UK design in the countries, this California in the states, and my overall favorite, the pirate flag. I think I'm going to need to order one of these for myself. Click the link in the description and use code AVC RIG and save yourself 20% on your first order. Thanks again to Rep & Roam for sponsoring this video. Now back to the install.
Before we install these plastics in the van, let's take a look at what we have here on the table so we understand what we have in front of us. So this is the top of the D-pillar set. This goes over your back doors. Our strike plates go inside of these. That's why we don't have to take those black plastic covers on. And they go up and they allow for enough room to have the factory wiring harness stay exactly where it started. There's 2 holes right here, and those mount into the D-pillar in the van where we put those riv nuts. There's also D-pillar verticals. This one is our driver side. Same thing, it's just gonna mount up along this flange on the inside edge. There's one 3/8 bolt that mounts into the actual edge of that, and then it tucks nicely behind that bulb seal. We have a mirrored one right here for the passenger side. Same thing, just bolts into that exterior flange. They do overlap nicely, so we have a really nice clean edge. Then at the other end of the van, way up front, we have these blob covers. The blob covers are super nice because it's a tricky thing for people to wrap in the van, and we don't have to do any of that trimming. So in some of our other videos, we've cut that blob cover down a little bit. Now they have a big plastic cover that goes right over the top of all of that. These are available in black ABS, just like you see inside here. They're also available in a pre-wrapped version, and we wrap these here at AVC because we've been testing some of this stuff out for GoCode. We had these sitting around on the shelf. So let's go ahead and get these in the van and get this install started. We're up here in the front of the van on the driver's side, and we're gonna be installing this pre-wrapped blob cover. Now, it's about as easy of an install as it gets. Basically, we slide it here on the edge, and then we're gonna push it up and into place. We're gonna make sure this lower edge goes on top of our plastics, push it into place, and that's about it. We can, our wall kit is gonna hold this section in so it overlaps this flange. Our wall kit also overlaps this flange up here. So that's it, we're done with that install. We're gonna do the same thing on the passenger side. So same method, just slide it into this crease here. Make sure we're overlapping everything where we want it. Up into place. This one's a little trickier because we have to make sure we're tucked behind this bulb seal. I have found it's actually easier to pull the bulb seal back a little bit. Make sure you don't get that black goo on your hands. Push the cover on top of the pillar plastics here on the B pillar. Then we can reinstall our bulb seal, and that's gonna pinch that pillar cover, or that blob cover, into place here. All right, that's it. These blob covers are in place. Let's go ahead and go to the back of the van at the D-pillars and get those installed. Included with the kit in the red baggie here are gonna be all of the rib nuts that we installed in the van already, as well as our 1/4 20 and 3/8 fasteners. So let's go ahead and grab a couple of these 1/4 20 fasteners and put them in our pocket. We're gonna install this upper D-pillar cover. So to do that, we're just gonna push it up into place. It's a bit of a tight fit, which is what we want. So it's gonna hold itself up there more or less once we're there. Just wanna move it around these wiring harnesses. And we wanna make sure we get around the latches here at the back. Then make sure our panel seam here is just inside of our bulb seal, so we're not overlapping anything funny. And that looks pretty good. I'm gonna take one of my 1/4 20 fasteners, and I can see up here and into my rib nut. I'm not gonna send it home all the way, I'm just gonna get it started lightly. Then I'm gonna find the other one matching here. Go ahead and put that one in. And I'm gonna double check my panel seams around the outside. Make sure everything is under, sticking underneath this bulb seal here. Looks pretty good to me, so now I can go ahead and tighten these up. And we're ready for the D-pillar verticals. So we're gonna install the passenger side D-pillar cover first here. This is our vertical. So we can go ahead and do the same thing. We're just gonna get it in place. Gonna make sure it's tucked behind the bulb seal everywhere we want. Make sure we're overlapping the top of this one here, nice and tight. Then we're just gonna push it up and get this first riv nut into place. Okay. Now I do wanna point out, if you ordered these separately from AVC, you didn't order them from us, but you ordered them directly from GoCode, you're gonna have to trim the bottom of them off a little bit. We take a 1 1/4 inch off the bottom of these. We also open it up for the wiring harness here, because we're gonna leave the wiring harness in place. We just cut the plastic cover to allow for that, and then our skeleton kit is gonna bump out everything just enough for this wiring harness to not interfere. Okay. So, I'm gonna grab our 1/4 20. Let's go ahead and put the top one in first. Okay. So we'd like there. Then we can just go down the side. Nice and tight. The last thing we're gonna do is grab this 3/8 bolt, and that's gonna go in this factory hole here on the outside. And that just holds everything nice and tight in here. And it's a kind of a cool attachment point if you need to put like a little handle here at the back of the van. It's a nice spot for that. Let's go ahead and do this on the driver's side, and then we're done with this installation. So here on the passenger side, we're just gonna do the same thing. Make sure we tuck it behind our bulb seal. Everybody's in line. Set this first rib nut at the very top. Our Go Code D-pillar and blob covers are in place, and we're ready to move on to our skeleton van framing system. The van framing system is set up in 3 sections. So we have the ceiling, the driver's side, and the passenger side. We're gonna be starting with the ceiling. Let's take a look at what's included. So let's start in the center and take a look at some of these pieces. So here labeled CC1 for ceiling center 1. This is for the very front section of the van, and you notice that the ceiling center 2 and ceiling center 1 are broken. And the reason we did that is a lot of people put a max fan in the front of the van, so we already made that cut. So if you don't need to use this section, we can go ahead and set that aside. Because we have our cloud cap installed, we do not need this section, so we are gonna set it aside for our install. So then just outside of the ceiling center, we have ceiling passenger 1 and ceiling driver 1. These are gonna fit at that front section. If we take a look at this edge profile, we'll notice that they're actually off center, and that's to account for the extra curvature in the top of the Ford Transit. So this is gonna correct for that, and it's gonna plane out this top of our ceiling, make everything nice and smooth. So the driver 1 and passenger 1, we gotta make sure they go on the right side so that we're correcting for that. So moving back into the van, we have ceiling center 2. Now ceiling center 2 is a much longer section here. You notice we have cutouts for the roof ribs that are in place already in the van. We have that front roof rib here, and then we have a long open section in the middle. Now it's right behind that second roof rib, and that's where we like to do our wiring crossover over the top of the van. So we have this section open so that you can run all of your wiring through here as you need, but there's a little bit of room on each one. So if you have specific wiring for your van install, we still have a little bit of room for that wiring to go in. We also extend all the way to the very back of the van, so we have a nice attachment point for our ceiling panels here at the back. On the outsides of the ceiling, we have ceiling right 1 and ceiling right 2. This is gonna go on our passenger side. This is very similar to our wall-to-ceiling support, but this one is aligned to mount with the Ford factory holes that are in the van. So this way we know we get a perfect alignment. It also has rib nuts in here that are gonna help attach our wall panel kit in the future here. So this one fits at the very front of the van. Ceiling right 2 fits at the back of the van. And at the top of these, you're gonna notice these little pill-shaped holes here, and these are to support some zip ties. So if we want to secure our wiring crossover on the top of our van, we have these cut out of here so that as our wires go over the top, we can zip tie these into place and lock those wires so they don't move around. Before we get to work inside the van, let's talk about the way that this is going to attach to your van. So we designed this entire kit to glue into place with this 3M 550. This is an insulation adhesive from 3M. It's high temp, it's really strong, so it's gonna hold everything into place. There's a few methods you can hold this in place while the glue dries. Now we do include some body panel pins that are gonna align this kit with the factory holes in your van, and this can be close to enough, but you might need a little bit more to secure it in place. You can use duct tape while this stuff cures if you wanna put no new holes in the van. Today, we're just gonna be using some sheet metal screws in here. I don't mind putting a couple of extra holes in my van. We've built lots of vans and put lots of extra holes in vans, so it's not a big deal for me. But I know there are a few of you out there that really don't wanna put screws in the van, and we designed this kit for you. So we can utilize all those body panel holes, we can glue this entire kit into place, and we have no extra holes in the van. Should be super clean. So let's get all these tools, let's get this kit into the van, let's get to work. Our first step in the van is gonna be putting an 8mm in the rib nut in strut number 2, and that's just on the outside here. Since that ceiling driver and ceiling passenger are split here, this just gives us something to push that split into, and it's gonna hold it in place. So we're gonna put it in here. We're not gonna get it super tight. We're just gonna get it close enough that it holds that piece in place. And once these are in place, then we can go ahead and throw our ceiling passenger 1. So let's start with CP1 and CP2 on this side. So CP2 is gonna line up right into this hole here. Just like that, we're gonna center it on that bolt. And then you're gonna notice that these holes line up with our 8mm bolts in the ceiling as well. So we can get these up here, we can dry fit everything and make sure it fits the way we want. I've already dry fit this before our video, so I'm happy with the way it installs. We're gonna go ahead and apply our 3M 550 to these ribs on the outside, and then we'll bolt it in place with the glue. Our glue is applied. Let's go ahead and slide it into this spot first.
I need to come back maybe a touch.
Yeah, okay.
Like right there. Let's see.
Perfecto.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
So on the center rib here, because we don't have that 8mm rib nut, we're going to go ahead and just put some screws in here. You could just put more duct tape on here or more of that Gorilla Tape and hold it into place. I don't mind a couple of screws. All of our ceiling ribs are in place. CP, CC, and CD, those are all in place. Now we're going to move on to the right and left ceiling infrastructure. We're going to line up these two holes that aren't filled with the rib nut with this hole and this hole on the Ford factory van. So we're just going to hold it up into place here. And while we hold it in place, we're just going to take a Sharpie and mark where we want to apply our glue. With all of that marked, now we can apply glue on the back edge on all of these so we get a good glue bond right here for the glue bond, and then we're going to put it in place. Right, our glue is in place, and now, all right, we're going to take our plastic Christmas tree plug here. I'm going to insert it into our Ford factory hole and just push this center piece in. It's going to lock it in place. Oh, thank you, Michael. Then we can push this one up front here. Same thing, push that, lock it in place. Now, it's pretty in there, honestly. Like, I'm actually surprised how well it's holding on there with nothing else. We're gonna go ahead and put a couple more screws in here because we want everything nice and tight. So we're gonna put this last piece in here on the passenger side. We just can't put a screw into this because this is the hardened steel on that Ford Transit. So we can line it up with this factory hole here. We're gonna plug it. We'll put some screws into the roof ribs, and that's about the best we can do here. So that locks that in place. This is beautiful. Put that plastic pin in there. Cool. With that last piece over here on the driver's side installed, our ceiling infrastructure is complete. Now I'm gonna go meet you at the table and we'll take a look at our driver's side and get ready to install. We're out here at the table and all of these components are a little bit different because they're gonna be installed on the driver's side. So you're gonna notice all of these have a D for driver, and that way everything lines up real easy. All of the substructure pieces that bolt all these pieces together are also matched with both of the labels for the two parts that are gonna bolt to them. So the layout and like pre-assembly should be pretty quick. Let's do a little bit of pre-assembly here on the table before we get it into the van. So here at the table, we put together D1, D2, D3, D4, and D7. These parts kind of assemble into a rigid frame so we can actually carry this pre-assembled into the van. We'll put 5 and 6 on in the van, and then all the lowers don't assemble to this bigger assembly. So let's go ahead and get these things glued up and in the van. We're here in the van and we're gonna be pre-applying our 3M 550 to these panels, everywhere that's gonna contact the van. So that's this surface here, a lot of these flat surfaces here, and then these inner flat surfaces. We'll have this all on the diagram so you know exactly where to add your 550, but let's go ahead and get this adhesive on here so we can get it up on the van. With all of our adhesive applied to our framing kit, we are ready to go ahead and test fit this up on the wall. We are gonna have to be mindful of the wiring harness. We just might have to move it around a little bit up and down to fit around some of the rib nuts and make sure everything lays flat around the wiring harness. So Ian's gonna help me, we'll get this up on the wall. We're gonna use all of these factory holes that align with the body panels in the van to use just some plastic Christmas tree plugs, get everything there that we can bolted in. And then we're gonna come behind that, we're gonna put 8mm bolts in all of these wall sections here. We can use these to just shore everything up, make sure that everything is tight as possible. Then if we need to, we can add some screws. We did make some pre-holes here along these edges so that we can screw this to the body of the van. Same within the back here. Let's utilize as few screws as possible. We'll get as many factory fasteners in here, and then we'll see where we need to add some screws. So down here at D10, this is the bottom of our driver's side wall at the very front. This one doesn't overlap with the lower flange of the Ford Transit too much. These upper holes here are gonna line up with this, okay? And there's just a little spot to glue, like right here. So we're just gonna get this roughly in place where it's gonna live. And then we're just gonna mark with our Sharpie so we know where to apply our glue. It doesn't have to be too exact here. So referencing where we put our marks there, I'm just gonna add some glue. Okay, and then we'll just flip this up into place. Push our Christmas tree in, and go ahead and secure that. Do the same thing here at the front. Into place, Christmas tree in, secured. Up here at D9, we have a full contact point with this flange here, but there's only one pin to register. So that back one back there is gonna line up, you can see kind of a half moon, and that's gonna line up with this open slot here. There's no factory hole that we can put a push panel pin into, so we're probably gonna need to line that one up in the future and put a screw in that. And the last one back here, D8, this is at the very back of our driver's side. This one doesn't have any factory holes we can use for securing the panel in, but we did put a bend at the top of this so that it just lines up right here at the top of the bend flange for the Ford. So you can go ahead and put some sealant inside of that crevice. And that's gonna do a good job of securing it here. Thank you. And then we're just gonna visually align it front to back with these holes, and that is in place. So at this point, everything is mounted and we only use the factory holes to hold this thing in. If you wanted to and you don't want to put screws in the van, you could go through, you could put some extra duct tape in places, kind of hold everything in exactly where you want it. Personally, I don't mind putting a few extra screws, so I'm gonna utilize all these extra holes that we put in the kit and go ahead and throw some self-tapping screws in there. So let's go ahead and do that and we'll be done with our driver's side. With those screws in place, that is the end of our driver's side. So let's go ahead, go back out to the table and get our passenger side prepped. So over here on the table, we have our passenger side now. You're gonna notice everything here has the P label, P for passenger. So same configuration. If you just did the driver, this is gonna be super easy. There's a couple differences because this is gonna go over the top of our sliding door. So we have to frame around the sliding door. We're gonna tuck behind the bulb seal. We also have a couple of 3D printed parts that go with this. So this one here, they both go around the passenger door. This is gonna glue in right behind here, and there's a couple of pre-screwed positions here. So we're just gonna throw some glue on here, get this glued and screwed in on the table, and then we can get the whole kit into the van. With these 3D printed pieces screwed in place, we can go ahead and pre-assemble this just like we did on the driver's side. So same thing, we're just gonna go ahead and glue up this framing kit here before we put it up on the wall. So throughout this process, it's always happy to have a rag soaked in isopropyl because that's gonna thin this glue down. You just clean up any of those overages. Cool. That's everything installed on our passenger wall. So we're gonna go ahead and grab our screw gun, put those last final screws around the edges where we need them, and we're gonna be all finished up. Hey everybody, thanks for watching. This has been our AVC Skeleton van framing system install video. Now, if you want to pick up one of these install kits for yourself, go ahead and check the links in the description below. We'll have one linked there for you. I want to say thanks again to Rep in Rome for sponsoring this episode. If you want to pick up a Rep in Rome t-shirt for yourself, go ahead and see the links in the description as well. We'll send you over there so you can pick up your favorite van tee. Don't forget, this is just one episode in a build series where we're building up our 2025 show vehicle. If you want to follow along with this build out, go ahead, hit that subscribe button so you can see all the episodes. If you made it this far, hit that like button, helps the channel, and we'll see you on the next episode.